Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be tuning in to hear my voice, to see this video, for your presence here on this live. Thank you so very much for joining. I am talking about talking today. I am here to help you improve and 95% of all your speaking, 95% of all your speaking, I am here to help you improve. You're probably wondering, 95% of all my speaking, what are you talking about, Steve? Uh, Let me just break it down to you. If you look at all the times you speak, if you had to categorize them into planned and unplanned, I'm willing to bet you that 95% of the time it's unplanned. Now, of course, you can have something somewhere in the middle where you have a basic structure, but everything you say in the moment is completely improvised. And that's exactly what this is right now. So, what you are watching right now is kind of in the middle. I've got some major points to what I'm going to say, but everything else is completely improvised. Okay, so 95% of all your speaking is improvisational speaking. And now, of course, there's some error bars around that. I'm sure it probably is even more than 95%. I'm willing to guess. I'm not entirely sure what your situation may be. Maybe you are in a sales position where you have a script, and so throughout the day you're reading a script, and so maybe that percentage of improvisational speaking is lower. But for most people, most of the time, what we're doing is completely improvisational. And why am I talking about this? Yesterday at our Center of Gravity Toastmasters Club meeting, at the end of the meeting, one of the guests said, how do you folks get better at doing these table topics, which table topics are improvisational speaking? In our club, when we have very few people there, we do it 2 to 3 minutes. So speak on a topic for 2 to 3 minutes. And there were many people that were doing them. And one of the folks it really knocks it out of the park. And of course, other folks in the group are quite good. And there were some people who were new to improvisational speaking and they were struggling. And therefore that question came up at the end of the meeting. Hey, how do we get better at this? How do we get better at improvisational speaking? And so I'm going to tell you a few tips that I think will really be helpful to you, really be something you're able to apply immediately. So none of this is something that I'm not telling you to run out and buy a book. Really, there's only one tip at the end that is going to require you to do some more work. But all of these tips from here on out that I'm going to tell you about in this session are going to be immediately applicable. So, first and foremost, let's just imagine here for a second that somebody comes up to you and they ask you a question. The first thing I'm going to tell you to do is buy yourself some time. How do you buy yourself some time? Two things. First is acknowledge their question and repeat the question back to them. So, say, for example, your boss comes up to you in the hallway and says, hey, did you get the new cover sheets to the TPS reports? And what is your feedback about them? So, in that moment, you would stop and then repeat the question back to them. Oh, you're asking me about the TPS reports. Yeah, I was looking at them. I have some opinion, or you're curious about my opinion. Okay, so all I've done is really restate the question. Maybe I've rephrased it somehow. I could literally just say, okay, yeah, you're asking me about the TPS reports and you want my opinion. So that's almost exactly what was asked. You could even rephrase it a little bit to personalize it to your own language. But all that does is it buys you some time. The second part of that, in buying yourself some time, is to breathe. There's nothing wrong with breathing. And the cool thing is, taking a deep breath actually activates the parasympathetic nervous system, calms you down, suppresses cortisol, helps you ground yourself and center yourself in the moment. Get yourself ready to answer the question. The next thing I would say, after you've bought yourself some time, is to use the Kipling questions. Okay, so those of you who are familiar with the Kipling questions, these are the who, what, where, when, how, and why. Okay, so in other words, when you go to answer the question, maybe think of those bullets, just think of each of those categories. Oh, okay. So, yeah, I got the TPS report from so and so. There's the who. I got it this morning via an email, and it looks like the reason why is, we're doing that because of blah blah blah. Okay. So again, you've already now, and I did that, real basic for you to see, but imagine now, you're able to start the response to the question with this structure. You've now got this structure, the Kipling questions, right? So who, what, where, when, how, and why. These 6 questions, you can, in that moment, you can begin answering the question in this framework. Okay. You can also follow the rule of 3. So if somebody says to you, let's say, for example, back to the cover sheets for the TPS reports. Hey, Steve, you got the TPS report cover sheet request. Why do you think that is that we need that? Whatever. Again, I'm just making this all up in the moment, but you can use a rule of 3. Oh, yeah, I can think of 3 really good reasons. As soon as you start talking about the first good reason, as those words are coming out of your head, I am almost 100% sure you're going to be thinking immediately of the second reason. Yeah, I know it happens for me. As soon as I get going and as soon as the words start coming out of my mouth, I'm able to come up with another reason. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with, and when you get to the third reason, oh gosh, you know what? I totally forgot what I was going to say, but I'm sure that I'll think of it later and I'll get back to you. Does that sound good? Okay. Again, rule of 3. So 2 things, 2 frameworks, Kipling questions and the rule of 3. Those are both massively helpful. So the rule of 3, I didn't click the banner. So you see that, the rule of 3. Now those are all they're very prescriptive about in the moment with the improvised question. So the boss walks up to you, hey, if all I do is follow 1, I acknowledge and repeat back the question, so I buy myself some time. 2, I then, do the breathing, as I mentioned. So I'll calm myself. Again, still buying myself some time. No one's going to fault you for breathing. And the funny thing is, as soon as somebody asks you a question, in your mind, the clock starts, and because the clock starts, you're perceiving the time actually 3 to 1. And I can't remember exactly which study I saw, but it makes perfect sense. Like when you're stressed, time goes really slow. It's a 3 for 1. So what is 1 second of real clock time is like 3 seconds in your brain. But just remember, you're just taking a deep breath. No big deal. Then, so you've bought yourself some time. Then the Kipling questions, right? The framework of the who, what, where, when, why, and how. Then the rule of 3. Okay, so there's that rule of 3 down there. And then so those are very prescriptive. Those are things you're going to be able to use right immediately today. Somebody comes up to you and asks you a question. Everything I just told you, you can use. Now, the next tips that I'm going to give you are things that really they're very proactive. And these are things you're going to want to start doing on a daily basis to improve this part of your brain, this muscle. And so this next one is completely brain. That's meditation and mindfulness training. One of the reasons why I am able to stand up in front of an audience and deliver an idea, an entire story, a speech, a 5 to 7 minute speech, sometimes with only in my mind the intro, the three main points, and a conclusion, is because I'm very present. I'm very much here in this moment. There's not a lot of background programs running in my brain. I'm literally here. I know this sounds crazy. It sounds like something from Ram Dass, be here now. Okay. So those of you who are, in that case of, I don't know what you want to call that. It used to be new age. Nowadays it's pretty mainstream, but you think about it, be here now, be here, be in this moment. That's exactly where I'm at. I'm not running any background programs in my head. I'm not running self-doubt.exe. I'm not running self-judgment.exe. I'm not running innercritic.exe as I speak this to you. Think of it, those executables that I just mentioned, they are like the background programs for your brain that get in the way of you being a great speaker. Think about what I just said there. You have only so much computing power in this brain of yours. And if you are wasting that computing power and that memory, you can think of it as those two axes, right? CPU percentage and the memory usage. If those two things are being consumed by those executables that are useless, then you are not going to be a great speaker in the moment. So training yourself with meditation, training mindfulness techniques, that will dramatically improve your public speaking. The last piece that I'll talk about is really simple. This is simple. Like if you thought any of this stuff that I was talking about before was complicated, then you're going to love this last one. The last one is practice often. It's simple. It's super, super simple. So here's what I tell my clients. So I have paying clients who I tell this same exact thing to. Take a question. You can go online and just Google questions. You can go to Reddit. Reddit has like a ask Reddit. In fact, we use that sometimes for table topics in our club meetings. We'll go to Ask Reddit and we'll find some unique questions. You can also just type in good table topics questions, Toastmasters, whatever. You can get some random questions, and then look at it, like look at the question. And then I would do this. I would take your phone and I would turn on the video, turn that video on, and then record yourself answering the question. And then just keep saving all your videos. Go back and look at the video. See, well, what did I do well? Answer the following three questions, right? What did I do well? What didn't I do well? And what will I do differently next time? And if all you do, honestly, this is a masterclass. Honestly, this is 13 minutes of masterclass on improvisational speaking. If you do all these things that I just told you to do, you are going to become an amazing improvisational speaker. You're going to become so much better than the average person. The average person, when you ask them a random question, especially if you tell them, I'm going to ask you a random question, and you set it up like that, oh, it's tough. I see people all the time. You say, hey, we're going to give you 2 to 3 minutes to talk on it. And they get to like 1 minute and they're like, well, I don't know what else to say. Well, now get some practice. So please take these tips that I've shared with you and run with them. And I'd love to hear from you. What has changed? So if you apply these tips that I have suggested here, and again, they're summarized, right? So we've got buying the time at the beginning, the breathing, and the acknowledge. So buying the time comes from two different things, as that's breathing and acknowledging or rephrasing the question. Then the framework, so the Kipling questions. Then the rule of three. I'm going to give you 3 reasons why. Then the meditation / mindfulness practice. Then finally, just practice. If you apply everything that I have gone over here, you're going to become an amazing improvisational speaker. So hope this helps. I hope you have an amazing day. Take care.